this Learning Together project training event. It is my pleasure. It's so great to see that there is already 38 participants in this meeting, which is super. My name is Jarkko Lampiselkä. I work in this Finnish project that supports new Ukraine school development. My responsibility in this project is to support the development of the learning environment, which comprises the textbooks, the e-learning environments, and development of the standards for school principals. The aim of this series or a series of webinars is to share knowledge on the Finnish e-platform ecosystem and to support the development of the Ukrainian e-platform concept. Our specialist here today is Juha Lahti, who has a very long experience developing the Finnish Pedanet platform. But before we proceed to Juha's introduction and his presentation, I say just a few words about the timeline. First, we are going to have about 1 hour presentation, which is followed with discussion session where you can present questions. So as that being said, I just welcome you all to the training session. And let's give the floor to our specialist, Juha Lahti. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me here today to talk about how we have been developing a Finnish Pedanet platform. As Jarkko said, my name is Juha Lahti and I work as an application designer. And I just first say a couple of words about our institute, Finnish Institute for Educational Research. We are part of the University of Jyväskylä, and in this picture you can see our new building in the heart of the Jyväskylä. Well, the Finnish Institute for Educational Research. We are quite, I'm not going to read all of these. You get these materials afterwards, but Finnish Institute for Educational Research does many kind of multidisciplinary research on education. And what we are most famous of is the PISA studies in Finland, the Finnish part of the PISA studies. Our education is head by Dr. Jussi Välimaa, and we have around 80 persons. Most of them are researchers, and we have a budget about 5.5 million euros, and mostly we get our funding externally. And Pedanet is one of those external funded projects in the educational Finnish Institute for Educational Research. Then we go into the real topic of this presentation. I just first tell some steps of e-learning in Finland. How long have we have been done something in Finland in e-learning business? The Finnish Institute for Educational Research has quite long history with experiments in computers. They already did first experiments in the 80s using the famous Commodore 64 computers, and they tried what they can do with Commodores in schools. Then in the 1984, the Finnish universities were connected to the FUNET network, and in the 88, this FUNET network joins the global internet. So in Finland, our connectivity has been very good for a quite long time. And even the largest conference on e-learning topics, interactive technology in education in Finnish, is already celebrating its 30th year this year. So even in the research of the e-learning has a quite long history in Finland. And for schools, the first dial-in modem connections for primary and upper secondary and high schools were connected or used in the beginning of the 90s, provided by Freenet project in Finland, which allowed schools to connect to Funet and from Funet to the internet. And the networking of all schools in Finland really began at the end of the 90s, so that all the schools get permanent connections to the internet. Then the Pedanet. Even Pedanet, it has quite a long history, over 20 years. And the Pedanet is a product and service of the Finnish Institute for Educational Research. All development of online tools for learning and collaboration is done within our institution. Pedanet also provides training and support services for teachers, and our research group inside the institute called Learning, Teaching and Learning Environments does the research based on Pedanet usage. And at the moment, we are funded totally from the membership fees from schools who are using Pedanet system. So at the moment, we don't have any project money to develop Pedanet. We are a self-sustained system at the moment. And Pedanet members are mainly cities, single schools, some different organizations, many kind of different users who can apply or become members of the Pedanet school network. And at the moment, Pedanet has 10 persons directly working, and we are divided so that we have 5 developers programming and doing the systems administrations, which I am part of. And then we have also 5 persons doing the support, training, marketing, and so on. And of course, we get a lot of support from our institute's secretaries and so on. So, but 10 persons are working full-time with Pedanet. So, the Pedanet project, when it still was a project, was established in 1997. At first, it was just a local project in central Finland, and the idea was to find out what kind of network connections schools have and how they can be used in education. This project was funded by European Social Fund and Regional Council of Central Finland. And we already registered our domain name peda.net in the 1997. And that was a good thing because nowadays that domain name is quite valuable. Many other projects and software would want to buy that. And already in the 97, we built our first server, already then running Linux, and it just did basic web pages and was working as an email server and mailing list. Nothing really fancy like a learning environment, just a server for the project. And I began working in the Pedanet in this year, 97, from the beginning. So I am the longest working person in Pedanet project. And partners in this project at the beginning were University of Jyväskylä, Jyväskylä University of Applied Sciences, Telecom Finland, which was the national telecom company at that time, and also this Regional Council of Central Finland. Then we developed our first prototype of really something of an application in the year 98. It really was a simple content management system, and it was quite hard to use because in those days what you can do with browsers was not much. Only few schools in central Finland were testing that. And why we started this web magazine prototype was that the partner of this project, the Telecom Finland, was supposed to build a learning management system for this project, but they did not get it finished on time. So we had to start building our own. It was never supposed to be anything big. It was supposed to be just a prototype until the Telecom Partners project finishes and schools can start using that. Well, that didn't happen. So we went doing another prototype in 99. A little bit different technology, but this made one technical major breakthrough. It allowed students and teachers to upload files easily just using their own browser. That was state-of-the-art technology in 99. And we created a system which was easy to duplicate to different schools. So this was quite popular, and many schools in central Finland wanted to use this. So we were happy. We had a working prototype, and we were still waiting for the big learning management system. But the learning management system of the Telecom partner never really materialized. So finally, we decided that we should publish the web magazine version 1 at the end of 99, and we just fine-tuned it technologically and made it easier to use at that time. And it was a quite popular, and most schools in central Finland and also few other schools outside central Finland, even though that the Pedanet project was mainly focused on central Finland, wanted to use that. So we were quite happy that we were able to provide a system which schools wanted to use, and they had the connections to use it. So at that time, we decided that we should continue to develop this. So at year 2000, we released another version, and this all the time we had this one system called web magazine. Nowadays, if I want to say what kind of system nowadays is similar to this web magazine, it was like a blogging platform, easy system to produce web pages. And at the year 2000, we did version 2, and all the time the use in schools expanded. And at this time, Comenius projects around Europe, which were working with Finnish schools as partners, already those started to use Pedanet web magazine. So we got users around Europe at that time. Then we started to develop our second different project, and this was called Foxpro. That is in Finnish somehow. What this system was, it was a curriculum processing tool for schools, so that they can easily write and publish their curriculums in the internet. And for this prototype, we got some students working for us from the Faculty of Information Technology, and they did this prototype for us, but only few schools were test users on this prototype. And based on those experiments with the prototype, we decided to write it again and finally release it in 2001. And this was quite popular, and was about its popularity. Well defining is that this was produced in 2001, but we finally shut down this service in the summer of 2017. So this service was quite long living. And our Finnish National Agency for Education published quite similar service called e-Perusteet in 2015. So that national system made our system obsolete, but still it was used after that couple of years. At the same time, 2001, we made our third different tool called Portal. This was a more sophisticated content management system, and this already had some learning management system-like features. And one big invention in this was what we call smart addresses. So all the schools and cities could have a meaningful address, peda.net/city/schools and so on. That was not popular at that time. And this was our first huge success. And the use of the portal expanded quite heavily because it was easy to use. And we got many users from, we tried this in central Finland, and then it expanded, but later on this became our most successful. The first one was we thought it was a prototype, and we decided to do a next generation portal in 2002. Because the first one didn't have personal accounts for all users, it had only shared password. It was not so secure, and there was no rights management, so we decided that we need to fix that. And this was our first big fail. The second generation portal was a fail because we did not allow any way to import the user data from previous version to this new version. And at that time, the personal accounts and the rights managements, they were too complicated for most of our users. So even though this was supposed to be our big release, we never really published this for wider use because the test use showed that we had failed. So what happens next? Because now we have failed. We decided that we should continue developing our old portal. So we started developing new modules and new features on the old portal, even though it had its shortcomings with no user IDs and simple passwords. But this was, after all, the right choice, because when we started developing this code base, the usage really started to grow rapidly all around Finland. So this really was our first hit, the old original portal code. But at the same time, we developed this web magazine also. So we had different separate tools for separate uses. And at 2004, we released a new version of web magazine. And we copied some features we have learned ourselves in the development of the portal to this web magazine also. And also this web magazine version 3 was quite popular and was used all around Finland and even in Comenius projects. And even this system was used until summer 2017. So this also had a quite long history. And then at 2004, we had the courage to try again with the Portal 2. And we wrote a new version. But this time we had learned our lesson that the user data is important. So we just rewrote the code and used the same data and same database as the previous portal. So this was an easy upgrade to all schools. They just get the new version with their old data and everyone is happy. And we didn't do any market research at that time because we were only a university project. We were happy that we have lots of users. But then one Finnish publishing company made a market research and found out that our portal had 80% market share in Finnish schools. And that was quite huge at that time. Our portal was the most used e-learning platform in Finland at that time. And even this Portal 2 had a long history and was shut down at summer of 2017. Then we started another different project or different tool called Oppimappi, which might translate as a learning folder. And we had done some internal prototypes of full learning management system. We had this funny name, Yale, yet another learning environment. But all these prototypes were only used internally and were never published for wider use. But based on those experiments, we created this Oppimappi tool. This was primarily used in upper secondary and vocational schools because it had personal user IDs and all these complicated and versatile user rights management system and so on. But this tool was really too complicated to be used in primary school. So the primary schools, they continued using our portal because it was easier tool for them. Well, we have this situation that now we are developing different tools with different technologies. Where do we go from here? Our users were always talking about single pedanet, even though we had different tools at that time. And major problem with these different separate tools was that all users had separate user IDs and passwords in the different tools. And for us developing this system, we had one server per this application, and all servers were using different technologies and different versions of different tools. So the administration of the system was not so nice, and it was hard to develop this system. And at that time, we only had 2 persons doing the coding and systems administration. So it was quite heavy task for us too. So where do we go from here? Then in 2011, we decided to do a unified pedanet framework because all of our users were talking about pedanet. So we decided that yes, now we are building this pedanet, one single pedanet. And we put all development efforts into single pedanet framework. We took the personal learning environment ideology as the basis of this development. Later on, when I am showing you this environment, you will get more information about this personal learning environment, what it means. And we decided that we should combine good features from all our previous tools into this one unified pedanet. And also it was important that all users have single pedanet account, which they must use when they are working in pedanet. So no need for different accounts for different environments. And also we decided that the system should be browser-based for all devices. So we are not doing any apps for phones or tablets. All must be used using a standard browser. But with this unified pedanet framework, we took quite a huge risk because we knew that there was no way to get all the data from our separate tools into this new framework. So even though we had learned that this might be bad, we took the risk, and this really showed in the transition to this new system, because many schools were using this new pedanet and the old schools side by side for many years. And as I already said, that most of our old services were shut down so late as in summer 2017, even though this new pedanet framework was published in 2011. So the transition, because of the data, was slower than we had hoped for. But finally, it went okay. And now all users are really in this one single unified pedanet framework. And here are some usage statistics. How large is the usage of pedanet at the moment in Finland? These are from Google Analytics from this April, during the Corona lockdown in most of the world, and which shot Finnish e-learning usage through the roof. And during April this year, pedanet had 66 million page views per month, 8 million sessions from users, and our service was used by 1.7 million different users, because most of those materials are totally open. These 1.7 million users are not registered users. They can be anyone who wants to visit pedanet. And we had around 200,000 daily active users each day during the April. And some statistics about the browsers, which is quite interesting nowadays. So the Google Chrome is the king of the hill, and then other browsers are much more slower percentages. And from our users, mobile and desktop users are quite tight. Well, before the Corona lockdown, mobile was a little bit more than the desktop usage, but the Corona time changed these again, so that the desktop is a little bit more than mobile, and tablet usage is quite low after that. And at the moment, we have around 490,000 registered users who have their personal pedanet account. And this presentation is not so much about technologies. There will be another presentation, but here is a list of the most important technological building parts of the pedanet. So most of it is PHP, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and we are using open source tools like Apache, Postgres, Linux, or our servers are running Linux, and so on. And the technological part of the servers is so that all Pedanet servers are located at University of Jyväskylä Data Center in Jyväskylä. And at the moment, we have different servers for different parts of running Pedanet. Also, in more technical presentation, I will be talking more about what goes inside these servers. For us, the security is really important part. All users and organization data, which is stored in Pedanet, is stored in Finland in servers which are owned by us. So they are not spread out to the world to cloud services. All connections to Pedanet service are encrypted. We work very hard to be GDPR compliant because in the European Union, this legislation is quite important for all services. And also because we are writing all our own code for this service, our code and development practices have been audited by external auditor. And also we have tested our system with a group of white hat hackers who tried to break in to our service. So they did this penetration testing, which they try to find weaknesses. They find some, but nothing really important, and we have already fixed all of those which they found. So we take security as one important piece in our development. So now I will show you a short English video presentation about the basic idea of Pedanet.
PEDA.net, individual, communal, and lifelong learning. One day, Nora realized that learning had changed radically in her classroom. The ultimate teacher's dream was now a reality, and in her classroom, individual, communal, and interactive learning and global networking were underway. PLE thinking and the principle of continuous learning had leapt from the pages of the curriculum into the real world. Best of all, the change was surprisingly easy. Nora had started enriching the learning environment in her classroom by using PEDA.net. Since then, Nora has been creating the courses she needs in PEDA.net, and she buys shared electronic study books for some of the courses. By editing these easy-to-use tools, Nora creates customized study content that best supports the specific needs of her class. She creates some of the course materials herself, and she also works on improving them in cooperation with her colleagues. Within this interactive learning environment, the focus of learning has changed from the sharing of information to cooperative learning. That's not all. The students in Nora's class automatically save their lesson and homework materials and their notes in their personal own space accounts. These accounts are independent from any particular organization and will allow the students to return anytime later in life to the notes and projects they created in Nora's classroom. The materials remain available for a lifetime, even when account users move to different educational institutions or to a work environment. Follow Nora's example and that of thousands of other teachers and take your teaching to a whole new level. Read more about the unique Finnish learning environment and create your own PLE space for free at PEDA.net.
Okay, So that was a short presentation about the basic ideas of Pedanet. And now I will talk a little bit more about those and even show you what the system looks like and how does it work. And the first piece of the Pedanet puzzle is this own space, the PLE, Personal Learning Environment core of Pedanet. Registering a Pedanet account is open and free for everyone. So you don't have to be a student or a teacher in any educational institute. Everyone can register their own Pedanet account. And these registered users get their own space personal learning environment inside the Pedanet. In own space, there are tools which the users can use to create private pages, so they can collect all data they want, pictures, files, writings, and keep them private, keep them their own. But they can also publish pages to other Pedanet users. And because all Pedanet users are in the same environment, all users can communicate and share data with other Pedanet users, even over the organization boundaries. So this is something quite similar in a way as a Facebook does, that all persons are in the same system and can collaborate with each other. And Pedanet offers an unlimited space for files, but there is still this little catch that we allow only single file to be limited to 2050 megabytes. So Pedanet is not a place to share videos and long files because we don't have that much server space, but we allow otherwise unlimited space to all users. The second part, and the part which brings in our money, is this organization pages. And this is the area of Pedanet which the member organizations pay for. And they pay us yearly membership fee, and they get their own part of the Pedanet and register their own name inside the Pedanet namespace. And all the addresses are these smart addresses, peda.net/organization name. I will show you later what that means. And also organizations can use these pages to publish public web pages. And most schools who are using Pedanet, they have their official public web pages inside Pedanet, which are open to everyone. And also organizations can use this as a learning environment or intranet for teachers or selected users inside Pedanet. Every Pedanet user, because they have these own personal Pedanet accounts or IDs, they can be given a role on all Pedanet pages. So if two schools want to do collaboration, they just make a page inside Pedanet and define all the users who should be as readers or participants or admins in those pages. So this allows really easy cooperation between schools, between projects, and all users. And that has been quite huge and popular thing inside Pedanet. The third part of the Pedanet is this integration to third-party services and content. Pedanet cannot do everything and does not want to be one single system which contains everything. So we have lots of API in application programming interface integrations to third-party services. There are login services, so people can use Facebook accounts, Google accounts, Office accounts, Finnish Empass ID accounts to log in to Pedanet. There are electronic learning materials from publishers which can be linked and used inside Pedanet, but they are provided by the publishers themselves. There is APIs for teachers to easily find the materials and be able to use them when they want. Learning apps, simulations, pretty much everything which has API can be integrated in the Pedanet if it's valuable service to the schools and users. And at the moment, this API integration is really a hot topic in Finnish e-learning scene and also internationally, because the reality is that there will not be a single one service which can do everything. And also, even in Finland, at least in Finland, schools want to avoid this situation called vendor login, where you buy everything from one single vendor and you became, you don't use anything from other vendors. And what happens if this one vendor decides, for example, to hike prices up, and all your systems are from this one single vendor? That is a vendor login situation, which API integrations can avoid if done correctly. Also, API integrations can lock you in even more deeply, but that's a technical detail. Now it's time to take a little tour to the Pedanet. So, as I said, this new Pedanet is a single service. So everything can be found with web browser going to this address https://peda.net. And now I will be switching my browser. And here is the Pedanet, the first page of Pedanet. At the moment, most of the information here is in Finnish, but I have changed the language of the user interface into English, so it will be easier for you to understand what you are seeing. This new look, which you are seeing now, is only 2 days old. We released our latest facelift on Tuesday, so if even I am not familiar with everything yet here, please excuse me, because this is so fresh new look of the Pedanet service. So, as I said, most of the parts in Pedanet are public. So here are links to all organizations who are using this organization page inside Pedanet. And I take Jyväskylä as an example first. So I select J, and here we can see that we have many organizations beginning with this letter J. And we took Jyväskylä here. So this is an organizational page of City of Jyväskylä, not University of Jyväskylä, City of Jyväskylä. And all schools in Jyväskylä are using Pedanet. So here we can find totally public pages inside Pedanet. And here are all the schools in Jyväskylä. And I can go, I am not logged in, I'm just an anonymous user. And I can go and have a look what the school wants to publish publicly about themselves. So this is their official web page running inside Pedanet. And they are using this as an information web page, telling about schools, sharing contact information, sharing all kind of public information about schools, what happens in schools. But also there are closed in private parts inside here, which I am not allowed to see now when I am an anonymous user. So for me as an anonymous user, this looks like pretty much like any public web page. I can browse around and read information. And there are some tools which allow me, for example, to contact the school and ask for something without having a Pedanet account. So this is the publicly seen part of the Pedanet. But the most important part is, of course, behind the login. And now I log in inside the Pedanet. And here you can see one part of the integrations I was talking about earlier. All persons can log in using their own Pedanet account, which they had registered themselves, or they can log in using these external authentication services. For example, many schools in Finland are using either Office tools or Google tools. So for teachers and students in those schools, it's easier to log in using those authentication services, which they already have. And there are university systems to log all higher education users inside and some others. But I can use my personal Pedanet account as I do now. And now I am logged in. I stayed at the front page, but from up here we can see that now I'm an identified user inside Pedanet. And even here you can see that my role in this first page is administrator. And first I will show you the personal learning environment and click my own name from up here. So here is my personal learning environment, my own space. Here I can tell about myself to other persons. So this is also my public profile inside Pedanet. When other users search each other using this search function, this is what they see about other users. So I can tell information about myself. Here are my personal links, which are inside the Pedanet, important pages which I want to save as links. And also these private pages, which I can do here inside my personal learning environment. And I can create a demo page to show what this means. And this is just the part of this, because this is, we just changed this, and there seems to be a small glitch that I cannot create a new page. So I just take this empty page as a sample. So all users can do as much sub-pages as they want under their own profile. And I'll add this here, this show actions. And now I get these tools to work with the pages. So I can create pages. I can allow or change the permissions who can see this, these pages. Inside this personal learning environment, the default of new pages is private. So when I create a page, only myself can see it. But if I want to share it, it happens from here, and I can give read access or use access or even share administrative access of these pages to other persons. But the default is that these pages are mine. And then on these pages, there are many tools. I can create new objects to this page. There are different tools, texts, submission folders. For example, if I'm a teacher, I can create submission folder for students to submit their homework. And there are forms. I can publish images, as in many learning management systems, different tools for different purposes. So, for example, I create a text page. It's that simple. This provides a page or a tool to publish information. And I can add images from my computer quite easily. And now I have my first part of the page published here. And I can add another tool. I add image gallery. And add some pictures. And there they go. Now my page has picture gallery and some text. So this is quite like any blogging platform to publish pages. But some of these tools are more like an operational tools, like submission folders or calendar or discussions and so on. And also here you can see these third-party learning resources. So there are different stores or publishers of learning materials which can be quite easily added to these pages. And one thing about the pages in personal learning environment and then on those organizational pages is that all the tools are exactly the same in both of those sides of Pedanet. So when a person learns to use these tools in either side, in organizational side or in personal pages, he can use them in other pages because all tools are available in all different pages. So it's quite, even though there are quite a lot of these different tools, there is lots to learn about how all of these work. But when you once learn it, it works the same way in all pages. And here I can show you that I can search different persons here. And if, for example, I search my own name, I get over, we only show 100 hits, but this says that there were already over 100 results. So this means that I can find all the users inside Pedanet if I want to share something with them. And as I said, and as you can see from here, we have quite a lot of different organizations using. At the moment, we have around 200 municipalities and cities in Finland who are using Pedanet. So most of the Finnish cities are in Pedanet, and also these other users like different sports clubs and so on who want to use Pedanet as their internal learning management system. So this is quick look what the Pedanet is as a service. So quite similar what most of the web-based services are at the moment, because there are not so many things which you can or should do differently than the others. So most of these kind of learning management systems around the world, basic functionality is quite similar also in Pedanet. But there are some minor details which are different. And we are developing this system all the time. As I said, this new look of this site is only 2 days old at this time, but we are getting all the time feedback from our users, and we develop this system all the time based on that feedback. So Pedanet is never finished final product. This is always evolving depending on what our users want and what we are able to do and provide to them. Okay, and now I change back to this presentation. Okay, we have still some time for this presentation part, and I want to talk a little bit about challenges which we have faced during these years doing the development of Pedanet. One of the biggest challenges for us and for our users is that users often forgot their usernames and passwords. Mostly it happens during the summer when students and teachers don't use Pedanet so often, and when the school starts, they have forgot their username and passwords. And there is no silver bullet to solve this. This is quite universal thing with usernames and passwords. But those additional third-party login services are quite important part trying to tackle this challenge, because school teachers and students can use their Office account to log into Pedanet. So it is easy for them to ask from their school's IT administrator to change their Office account and password so that they can log in, and then they can use that to log into Pedanet. But as I said, that because Pedanet members are not tied into any organizations, it's not mandatory. There are times when our students are not taking part in any school or in educational organizations. So at that time, they have only their personal username and passwords to log into Pedanet. And then they have to ask from our support services, reset them. So most of the support questions to us is about usernames and passwords. So any kind of service which has usernames and passwords, this might be a huge problem. This is not only in Pedanet, in every systems which are using these usernames and passwords. Also, most of the time, Finland is seen as quite developed country in e-learning. But even in Finland, we have this problem that between teachers, there are huge differences in their abilities and skills in using computers or digital environments. And there is a huge demand for continuing education for teachers. And also at the same time, this e-learning, these platforms are always changing. So the continuing education is a must, but at the moment, even in Finland, we don't have so much education available for teachers. So that the skill level of the users is quite a challenge. Or we could do much better if the teachers had better skills with computers and digital environments. And also for student part, there is this myth of the digital natives. Maybe around 10 years ago in Finland, we mostly decided that, or people started first talking that the younger generations don't need teaching of how to use computers because they naturally can use computers because they have grown up with digital devices. Well, nowadays this digital native is quite almost all persons in early e-learning laugh when they hear these digital natives. Of course, younger generations, they are not afraid of using computers. But when, for example, in schools, they have to use their mobile phones or computers to do work, that's hard. They might not know how to write something in a word processor, or they don't know how to, they can take pictures with their phones, but if teacher asks them to add those pictures, for example, in a study paper, they don't know how to do it because they mostly use their computers in entertainment ways, entertaining services and so on. They are not used, but these digital natives are not used in doing work with computers. And this thing shows in many places that also the students need much more training in how to use e-learning tools in school work, doing work with these tools. So the tools are not something which solves all the problems if the persons are not able to use them. Also, we have huge differences in equipment in schools. Some schools have older computers. There are many older tablets still. For example, the first generation iPads, they were a huge success in schools. Even in primary schools, the iPads were seen as a perfect tools, and they were bought to schools in quite a lot of numbers. But at the moment, they are not so long-lasting devices. Not so that they break, but their software is obsoleted. So when Apple decides that this iPad is now too old, it does not get any updates. Its browser is not updated, which we in Pedanet see that because our system is built using only browser, or the user is using our service using only browser. If the browser is too old, something might break up. So these older phones and computers are still a little challenge. And because we have so huge amount of users and huge amount of daily use, the amount of data we have on our servers happens to be a quite big amount of data at the moment. So with big data in servers, it always becomes hard, for example, how to make backups of that data securely. So if some catastrophic event happens, for example, in school, someone steals some other user's username and deletes everything. Can we restore those? So keeping the data of our users safe in any cases is hard when there is lots of data. Okay, this is the main part of my presentation, and now we can have questions and comments and discussion about the topics of this presentation.
Thank you very much for you, Juha, about this presentation. It's been very enlightening about this whole BetaNet system. And as you said, now we have time for questions and answers. We have already noticed that there have been a lot of chat in the chat room, and also we have questions put it in the question and answer box. So I would like to ask our local host, Vladimir, to translate these questions, or our translator to translate these questions to Juha, so we can have the answers.
Okay.
Okay, so I can read the questions in Ukrainian, and you can use translation, and you can go to English channel, and you will be able to hear the translation in English.
Okay, I just try to find.
Yeah, there is a translation button.
You have find the translation button. It's in the bottom row next to the record button. There is this globe figure. You can just tap that or click that. You can find there's an English and Russian channel, and you can select the language from there.
For some reason, I have this. This seems to be a little bit different. Here you can see that all the time, because these systems are different. Learning curve.
Or if you share your screen in the upper part of the screen.
Yes.
You can see this translation. No.
No. I am using Linux here, so this might be that for some reason the client for Zoom for Linux doesn't have this.
Okay.
Because.
So maybe we can ask one of the translators to translate it in the main channel, not in English channel.
Yes.
Is it possible? Let me translate it. So the first question in Ukrainian: як вирішується Фінляндії проблема поширення та повторного використання навчальних ресурсів? Чи існує єдиний профіль описання елементів метаданих? Якщо так, то на що він спирається? How can you find out in Finland the problem of widespread and repeated usage of primary resources? Sorry, 1 second. How is the problem of dissemination and reuse of educational resources solved in Finland? Is there a single profile for describing metadata elements? If so, what is it based on? Dublin Core, EIEEEOM?
Yes, at the moment, there is not yet official metadata format or this system, but it's developing. Our Ministry of Education is building this metadata definition actually right about now. It's not finished, but it's based on Dublin Core. But because it's not finalized yet, I'm not so familiar with it yet. But we are, when it becomes official, then we of course will implement it in Pedanet so that the schools can start describing their data and information using that metadata description.
Okay, so the second question that I have sent a translation to chat, Juha, to your personal chat, and
yeah,
and I just you can see the translation there, and I'm reading the question in Ukrainian for the audience.
Okay.
Чи існує загальнодержавна політика щодо втілення розподілення навчання і пов'язаної з проблеми обміну даними про результати навчання осіб між різними платформами? So you have the translation already in your chat. You can answer.
So is there a national policy on the implementation of distributed learning and related problem exchanging data? This also, there is no national policy. There are different projects which are doing experiments, and at the moment it seems so that most of those projects are beginning to work with Experience API. So that might become the national data, this analytics data API in Finland. But in Finland, we have this situation that we have not many national policies about these technical things, and that is a problem because the projects and different developers can do what they want, and the interoperability between Finnish services, it's not quite there yet because of this, that we don't have national policies for APIs and so on. But at the moment, there are different working groups in Finland which combine different persons and universities and public publishers and so on in the working groups, which define their own policies, what we should use, but there is no national policies on these.
Okay, so the next question is, I have already sent it to chat and to the audience. Якою мовою ресурси в peda.net фінською, чи є англійські переклади?
Most of the resources in Pedanet are in Finnish because Finnish language is our language is so small that our national publishers and who are doing learning materials are mainly in Finnish and some in Swedish, which is our other language. But Pedanet doesn't in any way allow only Finnish or Swedish. There are English information, but not everything is translated. And users can use any language they want. Our user interface is translated into something like 7 languages at the moment. Finnish, Swedish, German, some Sami, Spanish and so on. So there are materials in different languages, but not all materials are available in all different languages.
Okay, so the next question are also already in your chat, and I'm reading it in Ukrainian for the audience. Чи може один і той же користувач мати різні ролі на різних сторінках платформи, наприклад, бути учнем в одному місці і вчителем в іншому?
Yes, the roles of the users on different pages. Yes, they can have different roles because in Pedanet, the roles are not defined on the users. Roles are defined on the pages and users are added to different roles. So it's quite possible that one user can have a teacher role in those school pages, but he or she can have only reader role, for example, in some hobby group he is working on in Pedanet. So it's possible to have different roles on different pages. And even inside school pages, in many cases, even the students are given administrative rights to pages inside schools because that's possible. And it's not tied in the traditional way that one person has some roles and those roles are in all places. The idea is quite different than in most environments. But yes, can be different roles.
Okay, and the next question is already in English. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I would like to learn more about the main advantages of using Pedanet, functionality for individual learners, educational organizations, and educational system in general. As I understood, for individual users and organizations, there are networking, getting lots of learning resources on one platform. What are the other advantages? If you can name the main 2, 3 for each level, thank you very much in advance.
The one thing is this lifelong learning thing, that because we have now first students who had their Pedanet account when they went into the their first class in school, and now all the materials and all they are doing in Pedanet, it all collects on their own space. So when they change schools or even when they move to other towns, all they had done in their old schools stays in Pedanet. So this builds up like a portfolio of everything you are doing in your own space. So that is quite a huge advantage, and that is something which differentiates Pedanet from most of the learning management systems, because most of the learning management systems are owned by organizations, and when users are not anymore inside those organizations, they most of the time everything they have done disappears, or at least their access to what they have done disappears when the account is taken away, because Pedanet account is lifelong, or as long as Pedanet is running. All the material you produce everywhere, not depending on which schools you are. If you are doing it in Pedanet, it collects it in your own space. Other advantages over those which were already in this question, I cannot give so easily. But as I said, Pedanet is free to register. So if you want to try out Pedanet, even though you are Ukrainian, you can do it. At the moment, we don't have translations for Russian and so on. But if you can use it using English, you can register your own space and take a look what Pedanet can do. It's okay, it's free. You can try it out.
Okay, and the next question is in your chat.
Okay.
Перечислите, пожалуйста, какие ресурсы в распоряжении пользователя. You have it in English in your chat.
Okay, so available tools at the moment. This is easiest so that I just quickly open up my browser here and we go to this page and take a look of these tools. So here are all the tools available at the moment in Pedanet. So the basic unit is a page. You create a page which can contain these other tools. The other tools at the moment are text, simple text editor, group notes, which is quite similar to text, but all the persons who are administrators in this page can simultaneously write this. So this works as a group editing tool. Everyone can work with the same content in real time. Then there is this assignment, which is an assignment which the teacher gives to students, and students answer or upload files or something which they want to return to this assignment. This can be done. Submission folder is a folder where students can submit different files, short videos, audio, pictures, word processing stuff, or per submission folder, which is similar but allows other students to see what others have uploaded and comment on those. Forms, different kind of questionnaires using forms, image galleries, single images, discussion forum, single discussion thread, active calendar, which also includes publishing and subscribing from, for example, Google Calendar. Event module, which does this kind of registration stuff. If you have some happening which needs registration, this event module does that. Announcement module, single announcement. Folder, which allows persons to upload any files they want. Single files. Block module, single block entry. Links. Feed reader. This is some old technology which is not used anymore. So RSS readers, you can get content to your pages from other sources which are providing RSS links. Sketch note, shared drawing board. These are Pedanet tools. These tools are provided by Pedanet. And then there are these learning resources. EduStore, which is Finnish huge single store which is selling licenses for electronic learning materials from different publishers. Sanoma Pro, biggest Finnish learning material provider. OpinAika, a little bit smaller. ProMentor, this is mainly language stuff. Nettimoppi, also small provider. RedFox is a dictionary and grammar service. And Ellipse is an ebook service which allows lending of ebooks. So here are all the tools at the moment which are inside Pedanet. Okay, do we have?
The next question is, it's so important for Victoria. She's trying to ask in all possible ways. It's already in your inbox, Юха, in the chat.
Okay.
And for the audience, чи всі навчальні заклади Фінляндії використовують платформу і чи є це обов'язково?
No, not all educational institutions in Finland use this platform. This is not mandatory because in Finland we have schools and cities and even universities have quite huge this freedom of choice of how they are doing their work. So in Finland, we don't even, at least at the moment in Finland, we don't have this need, or we don't try to build any one single platform which is mandatory to all. There are some services provided by our Ministry of Education, but they are mainly administrative services. For example, there is this Koski database, which is a system which is mandatory to use because it collects all the information about grades in different schools, who gets diplomas and what different education people have. These kind of systems are mandatory in Finland, but learning environments and all those, there is no mandatory systems at all. So in Finland, we have quite a few competing systems. There are even other systems quite similar to Pedanet, and we are all the time competing about schools who want to use our services. And some schools use many different services. So that is how the Finnish system works.
And the last question, and last two questions, but from Ludmila Chernikova, but I put them together. It's in your inbox, Юха, and for the audience. Якого типу освітній контент викладено на платформі від сторонніх організацій і на яких умовах використовують користувачі цей контент?
There are many kinds of different contents.
From third parties.
Yes, from third parties, the publishers and different services. There are just ebooks. That is the basic component. Just ebooks to read. There are simulations. Even third parties are providing some services for doing something quite small but important. For example, those simulations there are many different simulations available, for example, for physics and so on. So there is many kinds of contents by third parties, and these contents are not available for all Pedanet users, because schools have to license all the content from different providers, and Pedanet does not do that for them. We only provide APIs and these ways of getting, when the schools have the licenses to different materials, we provide a way to get them to the users, but we are not providing all the materials. So the conditions are different in different situations. There are free materials, there are yearly licensed materials, there are materials licensed only for single users, and so on. So there are many different ways of getting those contents. And most of those, all of those third-party contents actually are not inside Pedanet. They can be published using Pedanet, but they are provided from the servers of those who are really providing the material. So the publishers have their own systems which then provide the material through the Pedanet, through the user to the users. So there are many ways of how this content flows in here. Okay.
We are out of questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have some. I'll just so that my contact information can be seen in the recording. Here it is. If you want to contact me, you can send me email. You can find me on LinkedIn and ask questions. And we will be providing a couple more of these seminars around Pedanet, but from different angle. And even I have a little bit hope.
Платформу. Ну і я сподіваюся.
I'm also hoping that if this corona thing is settled down, maybe I will visit Ukraine as was first the plan for this project. But thank you very much for your interest, and I think some of you will be attending the other webinars later on.
Yes, definitely we will. Thank you, Juha, for a very interesting and detailed story of Pedanet. And thank you to everyone who attended and was very active. I hope this Finnish experience will be very, very important and useful for us here in Ukraine in developing similar or even better platforms and environment.
Yes, also thank you from my point of view. This has been a very nice presentation. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for Vladimir, you about your help in setting up this whole webinar. As you have already said, we are going to continue these webinars. Next one will be in a week after, next week, Thursday. We will be announcing you about the content and time of this webinar via email later. So thank you for all and have a good weekend. The session is now.
Recording of this webinar as well as presentation will be distributed among all of you, all participants who attended today's webinar.
Yes. So thank you for everything. Have a nice day. The session is now officially ended. Thank you.